everybody. This is Amanda Pratt, licensed clinical social worker in Florida, licensed master social worker in Michigan, and certified professional life coach with Imagine Life Therapy. I am here doing a video about my GenoPalate report so that I can kind of review it, give you my impressions of what I think about it, what I've learned from it, and how this can be useful. So as many of you know, I'm not only a therapist, but I also live with several chronic illnesses, and a lot of how I manage my illnesses is through things like stress management, and part of having a good stress management plan is making good nutritional choices based on your individual needs. So one of the things that I've done is 23andMe's DNA profiling. When you get a 23andMe genetic test done, you can download the raw genetic data and use it to upload on third-party sites who offer different services based on your unique genetic profile. And one of them is this company called GenoPalate. Now, I was particularly interested in this specific service because of the fact that I am currently getting a certification in integrative nutrition for mental health. And one of the things that they teach you is that it's important that each person know how they metabolize our core nutrients, which are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And a lot of times we just end up putting ourselves on a diet that's a one-size-fits-all thing, like low carb, but we don't really know how that's affecting us if we don't understand how our body individually metabolizes these macronutrients. And so I wanted to do a test to help me know what my genetic needs are when it comes to my macronutrients, so that I can build a good foundation of understanding for my own nutritional needs. And that's exactly what GenoPalate offers in this report. So the report cost me, it was $69 because I already had my genetic data. They do offer genetic testing as well, but you can't download the raw data from them. So I would recommend doing 23andMe or Ancestry DNA first, and then uploading it to the website. And if you're a first-time user, you can get a code for $10 off if you send the link, share it with a friend. So I got $10 off, and I paid $59 for my report, and it's individualized. It takes about 1 to 3 weeks to get to you. I think my report took a week. So let's dive into the report, and let me share with you exactly what they give you in here. So as you can see, the report itself is 19 pages. They do some good education in here, so you know what information you're looking at and how to use it. It's pretty comprehensive. So at the beginning, they have like a little letter, you know, about why it's important to eat for your genes. Then they give you a crash course in genetics, how they look at your DNA, what the sequences are called, and how they kind of determine what your metabolism is for these certain nutrients based on what your genes look like and how they analyze it. So that's a little kind of educational crash course. Then they give you an example of, you know, why this is important and how we can use this, because our bodies each respond differently based on our genes to certain nutrients. And so you can cater your diet day to day based on what your genetics say about how you process certain nutrients. So they use nutritional science in order to compare the science to what your genes are. And the great thing about using your genes for stuff like this is that our genes never change. So no matter whatever information is out there now, there's always going to be more that's adding to it. So if you have a good foundational understanding of what science says based on your genes, you're only going to continue to keep adding to that as new research comes out. So they basically tell you how they've analyzed your genetic variants and looked at how it impacts your nutrition. And so for me, they talk about specifically how they look at my recommendations for macro and micronutrient levels, and that these are going to lead to the best positive health outcomes for me. It says here also that if they recommend a high intake for a nutrient, it's suggesting that basically you want to add more foods higher in that nutrient. If you're given a low recommendation, it means that you don't have to consume as many foods that are high in that nutrient. So for me, this is what my carbohydrate profile looks like in terms of how I metabolize carbohydrates. So they recommend that I consume foods that are high in total carbohydrates. And then they tell me why. Research has shown that people with my genetic profile may have improved weight loss, lower BMI, and improved insulin resistance by consuming 50 to 65% of my daily calories from carbohydrates. So they want me to get the most of my nutrients, my macronutrients, from carbohydrates. They give some examples here, but later they're going to give you specific foods that you can use for this goal. Then they recommend for me high fiber, and they say that people with my genetic profile may have a decreased risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes if I consume high fiber intake. And so they say 21 to 26 grams is the recommendation, and I actually need higher than that. And then they recommend low sugar for me because people with my genotype have lower risk of diabetes and improved glucose levels if I limit my sugar intake. So I already do limit my sugar intake, but I want to increase my total carbohydrates and my fiber for sure, because I don't already do that. I tend to avoid carbohydrates. So that was news to me. So then it goes on and it does the same thing for fats, and gives you recommendations for each type of fats, and then the same thing for proteins. It tells you, what percentage of your daily intake should be proteins and why. The next page is they go on to talk about minerals, and I really like this because they talk about calcium, sodium, iron, zinc, magnesium, and these are all things that we tend to be deficient in if we have chronic illness. And so I think it's really cool to be able to see, like, as a baseline, where was my body starting from, and I can target my food intake to this. The reason that it's important to target your food intake and to really be getting the most out of your food in terms of nutrients is because even if we take supplements are not as bioavailable. So we can take supplements, and because a lot of times they are, artificial, they're, I can't think of the word, but they're basically fake nutrients that we're taking in huge doses to try and make up for these deficiencies. But the best way to get nutrients is through food, because our body processes it better and it's natural. So anywhere we can get these minerals, nutrients, vitamins in our food, it's going to be better for your body. So these are the recommendations for catering to my mineral needs. And then the next page is vitamins. So I needed high in all of these: vitamin A, B6, B12, vitamin D, vitamin E, folate, which is the natural form of folic acid. Folic acid is the artificial form. So if you eat high folates, then you're getting your needs for folic acid. Then it gives you, do you have any sensitivities? And it tells me that I'm likely sensitive to gluten, but I have low lactose sensitivity. It tells me how I metabolize certain substances like alcohol and caffeine. And so it tells you, like, are these things helping you or hurting you? Then it goes into specific foods, okay? And this is great. It gives a page that says, like, okay, why this food over this food? And it shows how they kind of score based on your nutritional profile and your genetic recommendations, and then why the certain foods that are on your list made it to the list, okay? So these are kind of how they show foods. And one of the things that I follow their Instagram, and they said, little tip on their Instagram page, from left to right, these are the foods that have the most nutrients, that fit the most of your genetic needs based on your vitamins, your minerals, and how you metabolize certain nutrients. So the ones in the left-hand column, these are going to be your best options. These are still good, but they're not going to be as high in nutrients as the ones over here. So for fruits, raspberries are my number one, and then it goes down the list. These are the best fruits for me to eat. Vegetables, artichoke is my number one, and then it goes down the list. Then turnip greens, which I've actually never had, are the best leafy vegetable for me, and then it goes down the list and makes recommendations. For herbs, bay leaf, which I actually do use a lot in soups, is the best herb for me. And then it goes on to meats and seafoods and other proteins. So chicken liver, which I don't typically eat, but these are all the best meats for me. Seafoods, sardines, which is something I just started eating, but apparently they're very high in nutrients. Whole eggs, which I already eat, so that's good. Nutritional yeast, I just started eating as well, and that's good. A good way to get a bunch of different vitamins in your foods is to add nutritional yeast, which Trader Joe's has. Then it goes on and shows you breads, starches, and grains, and pastas. And then they give you gluten and gluten-free options. So for starches and grains, amaranth, which I've never had before, but I do eat a lot of quinoa, multigrain bagels, and then these different other types of bread. These three are gluten-free. Corn tortillas are really good options. And then for pastas, egg noodles, whole wheat noodles, both have gluten. The gluten-free options are brown rice pasta and corn pasta. So then they go on and they give you nuts and seeds, fats and oils that are best for you, and different legumes that are best for you. So then cheeses, milks, and yogurts, the dairy section. Again, from left to right, the best cheeses for you to eat. They give dairy and non-dairy milk options. And then yogurts that are either lactose or contain lactose or are lactose free. So this is, again, I really, really like this because it's a good foundation upon which you can start your diet to individualize it for yourself. What I ended up doing was going back through, I printed this off, and under each of, like, the vitamins, for example, I did a Pinterest search and said foods high in vitamin E, and then I wrote them all down. Foods high in vitamin D, wrote them all down. So now I have an even more extensive list of foods that contain all these nutrients. If there's anything, say, in a certain category that they recommended that I don't like. And then you can really start to tailor it and expand it for your own needs. But I really thought this report was comprehensive. It really helps you understand your body better and what you need. And then, of course, if you have chronic illness, if you have any other types of limitations or food needs related to your chronic illness, you can use this as a starting point and then kind of tweak it to fit your needs and your limits in terms of what you are able to eat and not able to eat. So overall, I think it was well worth the money. They also offer recipes on their website. Now, the recipes are pretty expensive, and so I didn't get any meal packages because I just didn't think it was cost effective, for one. Two, I totally would buy the recipes, but this gives you an example of what their recipes look like. So they give you the recipe, ingredients and instructions, but they don't actually tell you what the nutrient profile is of that recipe. So if you're trying to really get enough carbs, enough proteins, enough fats, know what kind of fats are in the food, what kind of vitamins and nutrients and minerals are in the food compared to your report needs, you have no idea what those are. You kind of have to guess or figure it out based on the ingredients list. And so I thought it would have been much more worth the money if they had also put in like collard greens and then put down, you know, like what is the nutrient profile of this side dish. You know, if you had, say, a cup of this dish. And so I think if they did that, I probably would purchase them, but since they don't, I just don't think it's worth the money. You know, you can get recipes all over the place, so that would set it apart for me, I think. But overall, again, the report is really a great buy, and the website is GenoPalate.com. And they also have an Instagram page where they sometimes share recipes on there too. So that is my review of GenoPalate. You know, try it if you feel like it could be helpful for you. And hopefully this proves to be a good resource. Again, I'm Amanda Pratt, licensed clinical social worker in Florida, licensed master social worker in Michigan, and certified professional life coach with Imagine Life Therapy, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.